Everyone, how you doing? This is the Cyber Behike Sana Cody, straight out of the Taino Funhouse podcast. I'd like to thank you, especially from the bottom of my heart, for downloading this show, so I'm able to share some Taino information, some Taino history, and man, it's gonna be a good show. Please leave your comments, subscribe, like, touch that bell so you can get future shows. Man, today I got a super show because not too long ago, I believe it was last week, I posted on the community board. Um, is it possible for a person or a leader to lead a Taino community that's not Taino? That means they don't have Taino blood, they don't have any lineage in the islands. Can they be a leader in a modern day Taino community? Well, to answer that question, I went way back in time. That's right, I went way back to see if I could answer that question. And whoa, did I find something very, very interesting. I went back to the late 1400s and I looked up a very, very important Taino leader. He was a cacique, he was a chief, a leader, and his name was Caonabo. He was the cacique of the Maguana, Cacicasco, or Ucayeke region. Wow, man, what did I learn? I learned some cool stuff. Caonabo, for all you Dominican Tainos out there, y'all know you know him well. For all you Boricuas, Cubanos, Jamaquinos, whatever, I know you know this man. Now, if you don't know about him, I'm going to throw some beautiful knowledge right here. Caonabo, translated into the English, the Lord of the House of Gold. Hmm. Many people consider him the soul, the spirit of the resistance of the Taino, the initial, the first step of the resistance. And who did he resist? He resisted the Spanish invaders. History, especially non-Taino historians, they refer to these invaders as conquistadors. Well, first of all, I just want to tell you, conquistadors in Taino language doesn't exist. They were not conquistadors because they did not conquer. We call them invaders because they came to our lands and they imposed their ways on the Taino ways. So, the first thing I want to teach you about Caonabo. Now, again, this is another non-AI video. So, I had to go to my drawings, and this is a sketch I made of Caonabo. Now, you can tell his jaw. It's a little twisted there, and he has some bruising on his eye. Um, he was captured by the Spanish invaders. He resisted. He was considered a true warrior leader. Just looking over my notes. In 1493, he led an attack on La Navidad. He killed 39 men. As you may not know, but Christopher Columbus in his first voyage, he called it Hispaniola. We call it Quisque Haiti. He left 39 men behind. They built a fort called Navidad, and he was going to come back with reinforcement, weapons, and more people. So here's the thing. We as Taino in the ancient ways, we used to provide women to our guests for pleasure. And this is an old tradition. And these men were provided women for pleasure. But what did these men do? They abused that privilege. Remember, this is a different time period. And they started raping the women. Now, this led to the first resistance. And this is a pattern we're going to see in Taino history. When you rape the women, rape the children, we just don't tolerate that. So in 1493, he led a battle in La Navidad, and all the men were killed. So this is what made him the soul of the resistance. He was the first one to see, to witness, and to execute against these invaders. So here we go. Let me give you, before I go on, Caonabo, traditionally, biologically, was not a Taino. He was not of the Taino heritage, which began around 1900 Common Era. He was actually a Kalinago, indigenous man. And this is what history notes them as a Carib. Now, a Carib is kind of not a nice term, which is rooted in a cannibalism. So me use the right term for the people, the Kalinago. So he was a Kalinago leader, man. Can you believe that? He wasn't of the Taino tribe. So it seems like our ancestors, they really did not focus so much on biological DNA lineage to be a chief. What they looked at was the honor, the respect, the compassion that person had for the people. So imagine this. Caonabo, the soul of the resistance, the spirit, the initial chief, leader that went to war with the Spanish invaders, was not a Taino. He was Kalinago. And yet he was the supreme leader of the Maguana Cacicasco. Now let me give you some other facts. The siege of St. Thomas. He tried to capture the fortress of St. Thomas versus a Spanish invader named Alonso Leo Ojeda. Now, this is the first time that he lost in battle. It was the first time he lost a military assault. So he was captured by deception, though. So he was really never, actually, he wasn't defeated in the battlefield. Okay? Hand-to-hand combat, he did not, the Spanish did not defeat him hand-to-hand combat. What happened was in 1494, he was captured through trickery. In other words, Alonso de Ojeda, after this intense battle with the Spanish, he invited Caonabo into a peace treaty meeting, and in his peace treaty meeting, he offered a gift to Caonabo. It was what the Spanish tried to portray as jewelry, but what they actually were, they were handcuffs and shackles. So as they handcuffed Caonabo and they shackled him when he was on a horse, Caonabo thought it was a gift. Once again, showing a little, even though he was a valiant warrior, leader, he still had an openness in his heart to receive a gift from the enemy. So what happened was, he didn't know that these were actual handcuffs and shackles. So boom, he was captured by trickery, he was kidnapped, and he was, the plan was to take him back to Spain. Okay? And guess what? He was put on a ship, and on the Atlantic Sea, there was a huge hurricane. We call her Wabansesh. It sunk the ship, and this is 1496. So the ship crashed. It sunk to the sea. Caonabo unfortunately died. Also, the Spanish died with him in the ship. He never reached Spain to be tried and tortured and eventually killed. Mm-mm, didn't happen on Spain land. It happened in the ocean of Yokahu Bagua, Manakoti, in the spirit of Guabansesh. So here we have. You let me know in the comments section. Can a leader or can a person be a leader in a Taino community? Well, when you go back in time, 1493, we're looking at some archival history of Caonabo becoming a leader, and yet he was Galinago. Interesting, very interesting. So I just want to throw that out there right in the comments section. Now, I think that was interesting. Caonabo left a widow behind. He was married, and his widow was Anacaona. Now, Anacaona in the Taino community, what the Spanish interpreted, she was a poet. That means she wrote these stories that were recited in the arretos that the Spanish witnessed, and she also was a writer of the songs, the sacred songs that were sung in the arretos. This is how the Spanish view her, and also she was a cacique after the death of Caonabo. So she continued the resistance after his death. She continued the resistance at Maguana. So when we talk about Maguana, we talk about a region up in north of Quisqueya, which is the Cibao region. They again, the Cibao region is considered the Golden Mountain. And the Spanish, they always had this thirst for gold when they first saw this gold nuggets, the gold jewelry, and they asked the Taino, our ancestors, about this gold. And the Taino really didn't value gold like the Spanish did. It was too soft, it was hard to manufacture. So they had to, into jewelry, so they had to mix it with silver and copper. So by itself, gold was not really valuable by itself, but not for the Spanish. So you hear stories in the writings from the Spanish of caciques and Tainos saying that the gold is not worth anything because there's so much of it. It's interesting, in 2026, the largest gold mine in the Western Hemisphere is found in Quisqueya. So the Spanish, their primary goal right now after the death of Caonabo was definitely to get that gold. Okay? So by controlling Maguana, you're controlling the interior routes of the island. So this is very important. Now, according to the Spanish, the Cibao Taino were known for their resilience, for their skill in navigating those mountains and living in the mountains, and also the warfare. They knew they were what we call in modern times guerrilla warriors, guerrilla warfare. They were masters at that. Even the Spanish said that they were a lot different from the coastal villages, the coastal Taino. The ones in the mountains were ferocious in their battles. Now, let me get back to Anacaona. Anacaona, her name translates to the golden flower. She was the voice of the resistance after the death of Caonabo. Maguana was the center of the rebellion. Now, she had a royal lineage, this Anacaona, because she was the sister of Bojiquio. When you read the history of Bojiquio, he was the cacique of Jaragua, which is around the southwest region of we call right now Haiti. Remember, the island of Hispaniola, according to the Spanish, that's the word they use, not me. But just in the historical context, out in the west is the highest point, which they call Haiti, the highest point, and Quisqueya was towards the eastern region. So he was in the southwest region, Aragua. And this is Bojiquio. Bojiquio was known for his power because he had over 30 wives. Again, on the Taino men at the time, they were polygamous, and this is something that was part of the culture. So the more wives you had, the more power you had. So this was the marriage with Caonabo united Maguana and it united Jaragua. So after the death of Caonabo, Anacaona goes back to Jaragua, right? And she continues the rebellion there. I just want to say one thing. As a poet, as a songwriter, for all you Taino artists out there, I tell you, she's like the patron leader for us as artists. She composed the sacred songs and the ajeritos according to the Spanish, dances, and so on. So I honor her tremendously. Whenever I try to write a song or I try to do some dances, I always have her in mind. I call her. So what I did was I did a little drawing of her. Again, I'm not using AI. So I'm not a great artist, but I love to draw. And this is my view of Anacaona, you know? So that's my version of her. The poet, the songwriter, but also the leader of the rebellion. So guess what happened? When she reunited with her brother. She became what they call a diplomat. Okay, she wasn't as aggressive as her husband, her late husband, Caonabo, but she tried to be a diplomat. She tried to use diplomacy, which is also a tool that we read in history that the Taino, their first attempt against aggression is diplomacy. You see that in Borinquen with Ahuevana. So we see this with Anacaona. So what she did was there was a moment where she invited Nicolas Le Ovando to a feast. Again, there's a tradition, right? If there's conflict, you invite that enemy to a feast and you try to make peace. Unfortunately, this feast occurred in Jaragua, and it was a betrayal. What happened was they had a council meeting or a diplomacy meeting in a Bohio, and the Spanish, they burned the Bohio or the Cane. They burned it. Fortunately, well, unfortunately, it killed most of the people. Two people survived, Anacaona and her nephew, which history notes him as Enriquillo. The next video, I'm going to talk about Enriquillo, her nephew. But check this out. After the fire, after her survival, she was hanged in 1503 in the Bate or La Plaza, the Central Plaza. She was hanged. Wow. So basically, she refused to trade her dignity as a Taino leader, the Taino woman. She refused to negotiate her life. So she became a martyr for the resistance. She became the sacrificial leader for the resistance. Wow, because her end game, and you're going to see this over and over with Taino leaders, the end game is indigenous sovereignty. They understood that these Spanish were coming in, these invaders, their thirst for gold. They understood this, and we understood this with Cacique in my other video, how he tried to explain to the Cubano Taino that their god is gold and jewels. So Anacaona knew this. So the end game for her was indigenous sovereignty at all costs, but she refused to stop the rebellion, and it cost her her life. So Anacaona, we give you the respect that you deserve as a woman, as a leader, as a true representative of the culture at the time during conflict. Wow. So we got Anacaona, true leader of the resistance. She honored her husband memory by continuing the battle. She refused to give in. Of Caonabo, who wasn't Taino, he was Galinago. But his spirit, his indigenous spirit of compassion and love for the people, led him to a Cacique title. So on my I forgot this. I did a drawing of Ezekiel, who was considered one of the most powerful caciques in Quisque, Haiti, for his for maintaining a strong Yucayeke and over 30 wives. It's my picture of Bujikio. That's right, Bujikio. This is, when I do these drawings, I try to harness their energy. And so on my next video, this is a little preview. Enriquillo. And this is one of the greatest second generation caciques. After these caciques were killed and so on, Enriquillo took it to the next level. He brought back the old ways. Enriquillo. Well, that's my next video. That's going to be a super video because I really love Enriquillo. And I'm going to reveal his Taino name in the next video. And new information about him. There's some stories of him being his DNA. Right now they're trying to do DNA studies where he allegedly was buried. So I just want to play this rattle for Ezekiel, Caonabo, Anacaona, and Enriquillo. And remember, when you need guidance, if you're up against resistance, against someone or something that's going against you and your morals and your ethics and your vision, call upon these ancestors. They've been there and they fought hard and they gave their lives. So remember, before you enter the battle, call upon your ancestors. Play your rattle. Call upon them and they will help you. They will not forsake you. Thank you all for listening. Thank you. Don't forget to like this video. It's going to help me out a lot to get the message out that we are still here. Taino, Galinago, all indigenous people, we're still here. Thank you all.